Hi, my name is Steve Harper. The students you just saw working at computer terminals while we were showing the opening credits were students who are studying in the EduComp in Sinclair Library using the Plato computer system. Plato is a computer-based educational network that allows students to sit at computer terminals and study from the computer much in the same way as they would study from a book. They read, they obtain information, and so on. However, with Plato, it's a very interactive network, very interactive medium, and it can do a lot more than a book. We intend to acquaint you with the educational capabilities of Plato by letting you meet and hear 6 of the professors from UH discuss the way they've put Plato to work in their courses. During the film, you might find it a little bit hard sometimes to read the small print that you'll see on the Plato screens. That's a fault of the resolution of our TV camera, and you shouldn't bother adjusting your set as long as it's in decent focus. It's just not quite good enough to pick up all the print. Nonetheless, we hope that you'll be able to understand what Plato's about. Also in this first sequence, it was shot in the EduComp, and they have 2 computer printers in that room that can be noisy at times, and they were quite noisy while we were filming. We apologize for the noise level, and would also like to suggest to EduComp that they invest in some covers for the printer to sort of dampen that noise to make a better study atmosphere within the EduComp itself. So anyway, let's get on with it. We're in the EduComp at Sinclair Library right now. With me is David Lassner, who is involved in administrating the Plato project here at UH. Before he came here, David was at the Computer Education Research Laboratory in Urbana, Illinois, where all these terminals are hooked into right now. Okay, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the history of the Plato project here at UH. Obviously, they haven't always been here. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
In around 1976, Dr. Donald Bitzer from the University of Illinois, who is generally considered to be the inventor of Plato, brought a Plato terminal to the University of Hawaii for a demonstration. He did several demonstrations for students, faculty, and administrators, and as a result of that, a group of faculty and staff in the entire UH system developed a proposal for a computer-based education pilot project, which was funded through President Matsuda's Educational Improvement Fund. With that money, we acquired anywhere from 4 up to 12 Plato terminals connected into the University of Illinois and put them on all campuses of the UH system for varying periods of time so that all students and faculty within the system would have a chance to take a look at Plato. As a result of that project, which lasted 3 years, a report was prepared which recommended to the University administration that we get serious about Plato as a means for computer-based education. And since about 1979, we've had anywhere from 16 to 40 terminals throughout the state acquired through the University of Hawaii Computing Center on different campuses.
How serious would you say UH is about having courseware, the programs that the students study from? What is available for the students right now?
We get courseware from several different sources right now. There's a very large library of existing lessons or instructional programs which are part of the Plato system, which have been developed at institutions throughout the country. So there are perhaps 100 different educational institutions which use Plato, and as they develop those programs, they are available in a central library at the central computer for use by anyone who has a terminal connected into that system. So in addition to all of those lessons which are available to us, we are also developing lessons here, and that generally comes about when a faculty member takes a look at the system and decides that they have a way that they could use it in their courses, which they think would help them. So we have faculty developing lessons in Japanese language, physics, zoology, biochemistry, psychology, dental hygiene, mechanical engineering, quite a wide range of subjects.
Yeah, a lot going on, and a little bit later in this film we'll be talking to some of the people who are developing those systems. I wonder if right now you might like to say a little bit about the future of Plato at the University of Hawaii.
Well,
Can it expand, stay at the same level, or what?
right now we're getting our services, as I mentioned, from computers which are located on the mainland, and we do have telephone lines to those central computers to connect our terminals to the computer. What we're looking at now very seriously is acquisition of a Plato system for the University of Hawaii, which would mean we would have the central computer located here, and we would be able to much more cheaply tie in terminals from throughout the islands into our own central computer.
So this is instead of going to Illinois.
Right.
Yeah.
When that happens, and we hope to include that in the next biennium budget, we expect to be able to put terminals on every campus of the UH system, as well as other kinds of educational institutions throughout the state.
And plus have a lot more terminals here
Right.
on campus of UH.
You can see right here we only have 6 Plato terminals for general student use, and they're used anywhere from 70 to, in the past, up to 100 or 110 hours per week per terminal. And we feel that if we have more terminals, we'll not only be able to serve more students with the courseware that we have, but more faculty will be interested in developing new courseware specifically for University of Hawaii courses and instruction.
Sounds great. Well, let's hope that the best happens. Thanks very much, Jim. We appreciate your time today. All right, right now we're talking to Dr. Howard McCallister from the physics department here at UH. Dr. McCallister has done a lot of course development himself for his physics curricula at UH, and right now he's going to tell us a little bit about what he has on Plato. Dr. McCallister?
I'd like to share with you methods of teaching that are particularly useful in the use of Plato. In the classroom, there's often situations in which the amount of blackboard work to be done or paperwork to be done is so large that the student fails to grasp the concepts that we're trying to present. And Plato makes it possible for us to improve the logistics of this, and he can actually see the ideas that are being taught. I have on the Plato screen a particularly nice example of being able to do this. We have is a rather common electrical circuit, which is known as the Wheatstone Bridge, commonly used in a variety of instrumentation. The problem is to solve for the various currents that flow in this circuit. Now, in physics, we're interested in teaching the principles involved, and this provides us a way of showing the student how the basic concepts like conservation of charge are of use in the real world in a particular situation. However, the mathematics is quite extended here. On paper, this problem would require some 6 pages to solve, or a better part of an hour in classroom, and we often have to resort to hand waving in order to get through it. Here, the student can carry out the application of the physical principles involved, and have the screen write it for him and avoid the need for carrying out the actual operations. You can see the ideas work rather than have to deal with the mechanics of recording it on a piece of paper. I'm running this automatically now. The student would normally type this material in and would be judged on the accuracy of what he typed and given prompts if something was wrong. But he can generate the basic equations needed to solve this problem, and in rather limited amount of time. It does not take long for this to be carried out. And this particular part is the application of the physical ideas. Then the student is faced with a rather large mathematical problem of solving that set of equations that resulted from application of the physical principles. This is what requires a great deal of algebraic manipulation and opportunity for error and that type of thing. But the ideas involved in solving this are quite simple. It's repeated application of the same basic steps. And by doing it on Plato, we're able to ask him only to supply the operation that is needed for the next step. And he does not have to write this entire set of equations. Applying that operation to that set would normally require rewriting the entire display, but the computer will respond to his request to modify the equations according to the simple rules needed to do this. And he simply repeats the basic operation time after time to reduce this equation to the final one needed to give the answer to the particular problem being sought. So that here the aim is to reduce the left column always to 0, and this has been done. The types of operations are only 4 of them. Simply repeats those types of operations, and the equation is solved step by step in the manner we normally try to teach it. But as you can see, to do this on the blackboard, one simply fills a room full of blackboards with the material, and the student gets completely lost in his note-taking. You cannot see that there's a simple, basic idea in handling the equation. I've had students run through this, and when they're done, they say, "Oh, that's what you were talking about." But then after having done this, they have the confidence to solve a set of equations on their own. But the problem described here is a common circuit that is used in instrumentation, known as the Wheatstone Bridge, the slide wire version of it. The student does this in the laboratory, uses a piece of apparatus that looks basically like this, geometrically like this thing. Here he can do the same operation he does in the laboratory. The aim here is to move this slide until the bridge is balanced, and he can carry out this operation, balance the bridge, and compute the value of the unknown resistance in this case. If he goes in the laboratory, he'll do exactly the same mechanical operation in the laboratory to do this. And this is a few-minute piece of work. It can be used as an introduction to the laboratory experiment or in place of it if one doesn't have the time nor resources to set up a Wheatstone Bridge for all the students. So the greatest application I find in use of Plato are in those situations in which the mechanics of carrying out a solution to a problem, application of physical principles, is so large that we cannot really do it in the classroom. And the student, in his note-taking and the logistics of the situation, very often misses the main point of the concept that is being dealt with, being overwhelmed by the mathematics, or these sheer operations of carrying things out. I think this will be it is quite valuable in this type of situation, and it leaves us with more time to look at some of the subtle character of physical laws themselves, rather than consume our time in the types of operations that I've just shown you on the screen. There are a number of spin-offs or extras that one gets after programming this material. Often I make screen prints of parts of lessons or particular examples, and then with Xerox can reproduce those and distribute them to the class. Some of my quizzes are simply screen prints of quiz material that I put on the Plato as programs, as lessons, and it provides a very convenient way of providing the student with good diagrams and clear displays of what you're trying to present.
Hi, we're here right now with Dr. David Ashworth, who's a professor in the Department of East Asian Languages. And Dr. Ashworth has been involved with Plato here at UH Dr. Ashworth, one of the things when I talk to other educators about Plato, they always complain that they'd like to become involved in it, but they don't have the time to spend learning a computer language, which can be very complex. But I understand that you've been involved with Plato here at UH and haven't really had to invest a lot of time learning a programming language. Could you tell us a little bit about your involvement?
Yeah, I think I'll do it a little bit historically first. When Donald Bitzer from Indiana or Illinois came out here to present Plato in the first place, I saw that it looked like it would be a real neat thing for language instruction. And I had a bunch of games and stuff in the back of my head that I thought would be nice to try playing on something like Plato. And so as soon as Plato got off the ground here and we had some people who knew how to program, I went to these people such as Jim Unger in our department and gave him some ideas. And he says, and what I was doing was actually testing out the feasibility of implementing these ideas on Plato. And by discussing it with him, he was able to tell me the extent to which it was possible to implement the ideas on Plato. And so from that, you begin to realize that as long as you've got ideas and you start talking to the people who handle the engineering end or the technical end of doing the programming, you can find out what the limitations are, and you gradually, I would say that in a sense I have acquired a knowledge of how Plato operates, even though I can't program. If I come up with some idea now, I can go to Chuck Roberts or Jim Unger and discuss it with them, and they can try a trial run of the idea and see how far it'll go, and then I give them feedback on that, and somehow we're able to come, to eventually implement the idea. So you don't really have to know how to program in order to test out your ideas on the computer. You can do even inductive kinds of learning exercises with Plato. I have a number program that instead of teaching the numbers from 1 to 10 in Japanese, it gives you, say, that since Japanese itself is very analytical as far as numbers are concerned, if you know the numbers from 1 to 10, essentially you can create all of the numbers from 1 to 99. And if you know the numbers from 1 to 1,000, you can do all the way up to 9,999 and so on. So rather than teaching ichi is 1, ni is 2, and so forth, this particular program gives, say, 23 and 32 and 13, and then asks you what 12 is. And you can by inference, figure out how to say the number 12 from the data that are presented. And instead of telling you whether you're right or if you make a mistake and you need some help, there's a little blue button on Plato that's called help. You press that and we'll give you more data to help you solve your problem. And that information can be presented inductively as well. It doesn't have to be done by saying, no, you are wrong. The number for 12 is Juni or something. It can give you the number for 22 and say, okay, what do you think 12 is? Or the number for 11 and what do you think 12 is? So with numbers anyway, it seems like a good prototype for the development of instructional material that is inductive in nature rather than rule application or deductively oriented stuff. We also have a thing on there which is called a particle learning accelerator. Dr. Ashworth's particle learning accelerator. It's not for smashing atoms or anything like that, but it's got a little panel, and you press words on the panel, and it makes a sentence out of the words that you pressed. Like you press America Jin ga tabemashita, and then it will give you that sentence and say the American ate, answers the question who ate. Then you press America Jin o tabemashita, and it says, are you a cannibal? You have just said I ate the American, and so on. And from this, if the student works with a screen for a while and creates various kinds of sentences, he can inductively arrive at the functions of the Japanese particles marking object and instrument and whatever. So it's not only the deductive stuff, but it's also the inductive stuff that you can do with the machine. And I found it to be very, very satisfying. And Ray Kaneyama has done a lot of things with various kinds of games on there. And I think it's really worthwhile for people to just go take a look at what we've got, not only in Japanese, but in the other things that are coming along. And if you have ideas, you sit down with a programmer and talk about them, and you'll be able to work out a way of delivering it on Plato. So I see a lot of valuable use for Plato, and I'm really looking forward to having it come here in a big way in the future.
Oh, thank you very much for your time, Doctor. It was very interesting.
Hey, what's that? I know who you guys are. Yeah.
Where? Who?
That's a camera there.
Oh,
I'm on television.
Oh,
Hey,
no.
do I get paid for this?
Right now we're with Dr. Art Reed from the Zoology Department, who agreed to come over to Sinclair Library and show us the catalog of zoology lessons that he's put together for his students, and also tell us a little bit about some of the particular lessons that are available to the students in his classes. So Dr. Reed?
Okay, thanks. I teach the Zoology 101 course here on campus. This is called Principles of Zoology. It's a course set up largely for non-majors. We use a typical lecture and lab format with 3 lectures a week and 1 3-hour lab a week. But we also do use the Plato system to augment the course. Plato is a very good system, especially for biological sciences, because there's been a rather large number of lessons already written in the area of biology, and these are listed in a large number of different catalogs, which are part of the Plato system. I had a rather simple time at the beginning of my setup of my course and the use of Plato in my course by merely going to these various catalogs already prepared in Plato, looking through the list of lessons, and selecting the specific lessons that fit the format of my course. It was then a simple next step to arrange these lessons in a certain sequence that fit the sequence of topics in my own course. And so I now have my own personal catalog for Zoology 101. As you can see, Plato is very good at animating and drawing. Here's a very nice drawing of an animal cell, labeling the various parts. And if I press next, as the computer tells me to do, I'll go to another drawing here showing a plant cell. And it gives a number of labels for structures. Obviously, this is going to be a topic then, a lesson on the structures of these various subcellular components and what they do, some of the physiology. And then we page to an index. Now the student can continue with this lesson, selecting various components of the cell and learning a little bit in detail about each one. Many of these lessons also have a short little quiz to check the student to see if they've understood the material, and quite often we'll refer the student back to parts of the lesson if they don't do too well in the quiz, and they must review it then before they can proceed on. Well, that gives you a little idea of this type of lesson with quite a bit of visual material added to the text material. Let's move on to another lesson then. And this is one lesson that I'm working on right now that will eventually apply to my Zoology 101 course. This shows another type of lesson that can also be used for science courses especially. It's an actual experiment that the student can perform. This one is a topic that covers the production of oxygen through photosynthesis using a small little water plant called Elodia, and I've set the drawing up here to show the little Elodia plant down in the test tube. The experiment proceeds by the student actually setting up the equipment themselves, turning a light on, which shines on the Elodia bubble, which produces oxygen, and then the student is asked to count the number of bubbles that come off of the Elodia plant in a certain time period. Okay, we're ready to run one experiment, and Plato is asking the student to select a certain distance to position the light source from the test tube. And I'll look up here and I'll select it at, let's say 20. Move it to 20. So the light bulb is moved now to 20. So now Plato says he'll magnify the test tube so that you can count the bubbles more easily. And it says to press next, so I'll do that. And the test tube and the LED is magnified down in the corner here. And also a little timer is set up on the screen. It says to press next, so we'll do that. It says that the light will be turned on for 1 minute. We have to count the number of bubbles. Bubbles are produced quite rapidly at some distances, so we should be alert and ready to count. So here we go. I'll press next, and the timer comes on, the light goes on, and now the bubbles. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You'll notice the student is actually gathering the data, actually performing the experiment here. 13, 14, I think I'm counting right, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, let's see if I was right in counting. It says, ask me how many bubbles did I count. Oh, it was close, it was 25. All right, good. So I've collected one batch of data. Now, Plato says it'll keep a record on the data sheet. If I want to see that, press data. So let's take a look at that record sheet. So here's a nice record sheet, and the first trial is shown here. It was a distance of 20 centimeters they're set up for, and 25 bubbles were counted. So now the student will proceed through collecting a number of repetitions of that experiment, up to 10 repetitions, actually gathering the data as they would in a laboratory. Well, I think this gives you a bit of an idea how Plato can be used for straight informational type lessons to augment the course, and also experimental lessons like we just performed with the LOD bubble experiment. I did an interesting little experiment with the students about 3 years ago, dividing the students up into a Plato group and a non-Plato group. I kept close track of how they did on the exam scores, the midterms and the final exams. And through statistical analysis, I learned that the Plato students come out quite significantly better in their grades than the non-Plato students. So I'm personally convinced that Plato is a good addition. I think more instructors on campus should look at it as an application to their courses also. And it applies not only in the sciences, but in many other areas of education. So if you haven't looked at Plato yet, I strongly suggest you get over, take a look at the system, and see if it does apply to your course.
Hi, right now we're talking to Dr. John Hylin, who's from the Department of Agricultural Biochemistry here at the University of Hawaii. And Dr. Hylin's agreed to show us some of the applications he's put Plato to in his classes. So, Dr. Hylin?
Thank you very much. I've been teaching a course in biochemistry for non-majors for the last 20 or some odd years. And biochemistry is a very active field, so that the amount of material that should be presented to the student increases all the time, which is true for other disciplines also. We started out using approximately 25 lessons that had already been produced by other authors, and since then we have added to them as we found lessons that were appropriate, or during last year I wrote 6 lessons on subjects that were not covered prior to that. In general, up until this past year, the use of Plato has been optional for the classes, but Dr. Akko, my colleague who teaches another section of this course, has found a significant increase in the students' scores on examinations if Plato was required. So this semester I have been requiring the students to use Plato. I can show you a little bit about the statistics that are available for the instructor. Let us take a look at a particular student's record, and I'll see if I can remember a student's name. I enter the person's name. Now here we can see that this student has been using the system since the 21st of January and has been using it for 3 months. It was on the last time on the 21st of April, which happens to be today. Has spent a total of 26.6 hours studying the Plato lessons. And we can take a look at what lessons he has worked in and completed. Probably this screen display will not show them all, but here we can see that this student has completed virtually every lesson. And is completely up to date. If there were some difficulty that the student was having, and I could perceive this from some of the information here, there is a possibility to construct individual sequences, which would permit me to now select from the main lesson catalog any individual sequences which I think the student should look at, again, or optional lessons or lessons that are not in the catalog, but which I think are desirable. So, contrary to what is usually said about computer-assisted instruction, it can be, in fact, an exceedingly personal medium. Let's now take a look at a lesson which deals with the urea cycle. This is the main body of the lesson, which follows the introduction. And here we have a graphic display of the urea cycle. The cycle is a stepwise proceeding of a series of reactions. And down at the bottom, there are instructions as to what you can do. The drawing can be repeated with pauses if next is pressed. Shift next will start the lesson on its normal procedure, and if you don't like it, you can go back to the menu. Let's go shift next here. Here we see the component that was shown in the overall diagram, a textual explanation of the component, and then the actual reactions in structural formulas in more detail. And then this continues through the whole lesson. I have been told that faculty members in some disciplines feel that Plato is inappropriate to their discipline. This may in fact be true, but I think that there is a place for Plato in every university discipline, and the limiting factor is generally the time available to the professor and the imagination of the individual. So I would urge all faculty at the University of Hawaii to give Plato a try, and I think both you and your students will be very pleasantly surprised with the results.
John Southworth is going to talk a little bit about the networking capabilities of Plato and how Plato has been used here at University High.
Okay, Steve. Well, you're seeing right now some of the use of Plato's graphics capabilities. We're going to be looking at some of the examples and talking about some of the uses that we have made of Plato here at University High School. This is actually the first location in the state of Hawaii that Plato is available at the secondary level. Baron Fujimoto is one of our student assistants that is running the terminal right now. And right now it looks like he's out in outer space. We'll have him change over to program that will give you some idea of the extent that Plato provides for us. In this particular space demonstration, if we come back down to Earth, we'll look at a program called Network, and go into that right now. This particular Plato system that we're part of is coming to you from the University of Illinois. We've been on the system since 1977, and this initial map that we have on the system will show you the locations of the Illinois system. Now, besides the several hundred terminals linked to this system, perhaps up to a number of 2,000 around the country and in Hawaii, we see that there's also a list of systems around the world, which this next graph will show you, which makes really Plato an international network. And I see in the whole world of what we call computer-based educational telecommunications some exciting possibilities for the use of computer technology. As you will see when this finishes plotting, there are about a dozen systems located around in North America, Canada, South Africa, Western Europe, Korea, and Australia. And with these being interlinked through various modes of communication, we have interesting opportunities for some cross-cultural communication between the various systems. The idea that is that you can communicate via computers in this particular system, Plato particularly, the opportunity to do it live, what we call synchronous communication. We can type the name of an individual who's on the system and see if he is actually available, he or she or whoever it is. Let's see if this particular person's name and group, Sand of group Dune. And all right, at this particular point, we have him saying hello from the other end, and Baron is talking to him. So maybe he can ask him where he's located. It's truly an interactive system. One can talk about whatever you want to. And at times, he's located back at the University of Illinois at the Computer-Based Education Research Lab. You might see if he can, as he says, the main Plato site. This is the big building where all else evolves from. Indeed, that is what we're depending on. In this particular kind of system, the way it's set up, we do depend on a central computer. Now, some people are arguing that microcomputers are much more reliable. You don't have to depend on a big computer, and that is certainly one of the arguments that comes up perhaps in their behalf. But I think the kind of opportunities that one has in communication, we've had some other activities in which we've communicated with people around different parts of the country. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. Baron right now is trying to ask him if he would be able to give us a demonstration by monitor. And let's see, he doesn't seem to quite understand that HI stands for Hawaii and is asking Baron where he's located. So we might ask him if he could give us a demonstration. And so he said he will show us something right now. So what's happening right now is coming to you directly from Illinois. I don't know what, it looks like it's an interesting graphics theme of which he's rotating some image around the screen. I don't know if that'll pick up or not. The principle is that at this particular time, we're not running the terminal. Baron actually could sit back and not even touch the terminal, and it would still be operating because Sandune, or whatever his real name is back in Illinois running this particular program. We can at any time ask him questions about the program. What is this? Is this a game? What is the purpose of this one? It looks to me as though it's using some of the graphics capabilities that the system has to display a line in various forms and different frequencies. This provides an interesting opportunity for students studying in mathematics to experiment using computer technology in something like this. And he says, and so on and so forth. We've just begun some other activities in relation to our language program, in which Plato has been used in a variety of ways. A more traditional way is the Japanese language programs. I think you probably have seen or will see examples of those. And we won't go into that right now, but these very programs are being used by our language department in Japanese classes, are a very outstanding collection of simulations, drill and practice, and other modes of use of the Plato system. Our French department has used some of the French language lessons, and they also have been using the Plato system, are beginning to, in a communications mode, by exchanging items in French with others on the Illinois system, and we're planning on being in touch through the international network with some of the French speakers on the Belgian system or one of the other European systems. So this provides this, again, cross-cultural computer-based educational telecommunications elements of the use of the system. So I hope that maybe that gives you some idea of some of the aspects of Plato as we've experienced it here at the lab school, and hopefully we'll be able to continue to experience. I think a major concern that some of us have personally is as we move toward getting our own system here in Hawaii, that we do remain part of the international network, as opposed to some of the independent systems that have been totally independent and cannot be linked. I think this linking capability is one of the most important right now, particularly for sites like Hawaii that are otherwise so isolated. And I hope that we will be able to keep that aspect of the Plato system once we have our independent system. I hope that answers some of your questions and gives you some idea of what's happening with Plato at the University of Hawaii Laboratory School.
Well, thank you. This is Dr. James Unger from the Department of East Asian Languages. Dr. Unger has developed an extensive array of courseware for teaching Japanese, which is used in the Japanese program here at UH, and is also involved in a research and development project with CDC for using the Plato computer to do Japanese word processing, and Dr. Unger's agreed to tell us a little bit about both of these projects. Dr. Unger?
I guess I'll start talking about courseware in Japanese. I've put up on the screen already the beginning of a lesson. We can use characters in instructional text itself. Now in this lesson, we have model sentence in which patches of hiragana have to be converted to kanji, Chinese characters, in order to put the sentence in proper orthographic form by Japanese standards. And those patches of hiragana are in boxes. The sentence reads, Hawaii wa beikoku no shū no hitotsu de yotsu no chisai shima kara natte imasu. Hawaii is one of the states of the United States and is made up of 4 small islands. Now the student can select any character by touching, and then, or before that, any box by touching. At this point, a wrong answer has been encountered. It happens to be a very wrong answer as opposed to a near miss. The student can select another box or another character. For example, the student may select another character, which happens to be close. The right answer is over here. When the right answer appears, substitution occurs. Here's another near miss. Suppose this time we change the box rather than the character. Now we're way off. Here's the answer. Touch didn't register that time. There we go. And so forth. Another near miss. Make it right. There's the completed sentence. Now, the beauty of this is that really the student determined the order in which to do things. The computer supplied the logic which made it possible for the student to proceed in whatever order the student regarded as most natural. And that's something that would simply be difficult or impossible to do in a computer system which offered a less powerful computing language, interface language than Plato does. Let's take a look at some other things. All right. This is a lesson which is still under development. This was created by another of my lab assistants, Chuck Roberts, who's going for his MA in our department. And this really gives a very good idea of the complexity and the computing power that one has at one's disposal on Plato using the tutor language. Okay, here we are with a little map of a town, and we're told down here, which car would you like to take? The fast car or the slow car? Let's take the fast car. Okay. And there goes the car out from the station. Which way do you want to turn? Left or right? All right, let's turn to the left. There we go. Now we're going to give the taxi driver some instructions, and this is strictly free format. So we can say something like, Massumite, go straight ahead. Tsugi no kado, typo. Tsugi no kado o hidari ni magatte. Turn the next corner to the left. Byōin made itte kudasai. And go up to the hospital. Okay, and now, let's see, what do we have to do? Press lab. There goes the car. There it goes. Stops at the entrance. We've succeeded. Now the point is that the lesson is set up in such a way that the car, starting at any place, can get to any other place, provided the student puts in grammatically proper sentences. We would say, Tsugi no kado o hidari ni magatte, departo made itte kudasai. Turn left at the next corner and go to the department store. Go as far as the department store. And there we go. All the lessons that I've demonstrated so far have been used with students of elementary Japanese on a more or less voluntary basis only. We anticipate that the university will be acquiring its own Plato system in 1983, and we have already made a request to our dean in the Division of Languages, Linguistics, and Literature, which has, I understand now, passed with high priority through the Chancellor's office, to maintain 12 terminals here in Moore Hall in the language laboratory for use in foreign language teaching. And assuming that these plans go ahead according to schedule, we have every reason to believe that they will, we will then be in a position for the first time to prescribe Plato as part of the curriculum on an obligatory basis. This should result in a major savings in classroom time and a far greater flexibility for students in scheduling their time for study. It also should have a very beneficial psychological effect, especially in elementary language teaching. At Manoa, we have typically 1,000 undergraduates enrolled in Japanese language courses every semester. We have major problems in motivation. We have extreme difficulty in ensuring homogeneity of students within individual classes. And Plato, because it is able to provide a high degree of individualization and self-pacing and remove inhibitions created by the classroom atmosphere, makes it especially desirable in our situation. It allows the more talented students to proceed at their own pace ahead of the class, and at the same time, it makes it possible for students who would otherwise perhaps not pass the courses to keep up with the mean level of the class. It will also mean that our teachers will have considerable liberation of classroom time for creative teaching in a way that currently they are to an extent that they are currently unable to achieve. Of course, another very important feature of bringing Plato to the UH is that it's a capital investment, which, although we will be using extensively in foreign language teaching, is not confined to our department. Typically, if the university makes an investment in hardware like a computer system, it's the humanities and social sciences, well, to a lesser extent the social sciences, but certainly the humanities that lose out. This is one investment in computer hardware where all departments in the university are going to share in the benefits equally. And to that extent, it's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a department such as ours. It also means that we will be unique nationally, if not internationally, in an area of high-tech R&D and be able to incorporate more advanced work with Plato in Japanese and Chinese and Korean into our graduate program.
Now we're with Nan Wantanabe, who is the site director here at the University of Hawaii for the Plato system. Nan can help you out if you have questions about getting started out on the system. Nan, let's say that a professor has seen this film and has gotten interested in Plato and wants to first of all get on the system and look at some lessons to see how they work and get an idea of what computer assisted instruction is all about. What should such a professor do?
Well, contact either David or me at the computing center on campus, and we'll discuss your needs and the areas that you're interested in, and then get you started.
Okay, we have the availability right now. If a professor is interested, we probably can give them the ability to look at lessons on Plato.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, let's say that same professor sees some lessons he or she likes and decides that maybe those could be put to use in a course that's being taught here at UH. What should be done then, and would it be possible to institute new Plato courses here at UH with our present resources?
Well, there are many hundreds of lessons already in existence on the system, and should a professor be interested in a certain area, we normally sit down and discuss the subject area, talk about lessons that already exist, and then one of our functions is to structure class routers or establish groups for students to access those lessons. The professor is interested in creating lessons from scratch. We usually recommend that the professor play around with the system himself or herself for a while first, get an idea of what can be involved, what is involved, what can happen, how much time it can take, and then we're in the position to advise and consult on those type of projects.
Okay, well thanks a lot. We appreciate your appearing on this film, Nan.
Okay.
Okay, that's all we've got for right now. We hope you enjoyed the movie and hopefully learned something about how Plato operates and what you can do with it. I'd like to thank all the faculty and the staff from the Computing Center who took part in the movie and donated their time to us for free. We're not even paying Dave Ashworth. And finally, I'd like you to go over and take a look at Plato yourself. The movie, we thought, was a good way to get you acquainted with it, but there's no substitute for actually going, sitting down at the terminal, and trying it for yourself. It is a very personal, interactive medium, so I think you should experience it that way rather than from a movie.